this was my sister and her husband's first weekend date was to Comic-Con, and they are now in the audience reliving, after all those years of marriage, their first sleepaway date.
Oh!
Yeah.
That's adorable!
It's sweet.
Have you seen any of the con yet, or did you just say basically they kind of have to swoop you in?
The guy kind of had to work today, but I'm looking forward to see the con later on.
You can put a mask on and just float through.
I'm gonna work this mask.
You're good Sandra Bullock cosplay. Thanks.
Okay, all right.
The dress may be a bit of a problem.
The dress, well, you know, if it gets me free stuff, I'll wear whatever I need to.
Yeah. This movie looks incredible because it's definitely terrifying, but it feels like it's just you and George Clooney, and it's really all about the performances of you against each other. Was any of that scary, knowing that you're coming into the movie where it was the performances were going to have to drive it?
It should have been scary. I think what was scarier was the fact that these men created something that had never been done before. The technology basically was being created on the spot. Not on the spot, it had taken years to get us, to where once we humans stepped into whatever they created, they didn't know if it was going to work or not. And all these pieces were mathematically and systematically put together. There was no improvising. This was the brainchild of all these amazing people working together. So that's what was more daunting to me, because you didn't want to let them down because they worked so long. I should have thought about the fact that it was just me and George, but you didn't, because it was just the physical aspect of it was so scary that you just wanted to step up to their game.
So, by the way, start lining up for questions because we're going to have some time for Q&A in a few minutes. But what was the workday like for you on this movie? Was it basically just like get into the suit and then you're in it for like 15 hours?
I think that's a great question for Alfonso to answer, because he was like the evil puppeteer who masterminded the whole thing.
What was it like?
Well, it was a very intense experience for Sandra, that I have to admit. The film is about Ryan Stone being insulated in space, and as a big coincidence, the technology that we created to make the film required for her to be insulated. For a long time, she was in a cube that is 9 by 9 of LED lights, in which she would be in one rig in the center of that cube. Outside there were robots that were holding the camera. In some instances, a robot that was holding the light. And this is robot, we're talking about the manufacturing, the car manufacturing robots. And then, if you walk into the set, you will see that strange cube that looked very beautiful. At the end of the stage, and it was rows and rows and rows and rows of computers and a bunch of very wise geeks doing a lot of work. But the truth of the matter is that Sandra was completely insulated in that cube. And it took a while for her to get into the rig. So Sandra chose that in between the takes she would stay there. And she would stay there just in her zone with her music. Because something was very clear is that, as Sandra said, it was very mathematical. But our focus was not the technology, our focus was the performance. It was the emotional journey and how that was going to be translated.
Yeah. What were some of the challenges as a producer when you were putting this film together? You're like, well, they're trapped in space, and they're like, and you're like, no, it's going to be awesome. Like, how do you sell that? How do you make that work?
One of the things that we're talking about is this amazing robot that was invented, at the end of which was the camera, because we never wanted to show gravity. They were in space. Sandra and George were in space, and you didn't want, if they were upside down, you didn't want the face doing this, or the face doing that. You didn't want any sense of gravity, so the camera would rotate around, and it was motoring down this track around 20-25 miles an hour, and would stop on a dime. When Sandra said, you asked her whether she was scared, what she was, I imagine, most scared of was this camera racing towards her and stopping literally an inch from her nose. So she couldn't lean too far forward. She had to be right back. And it was, I imagine, quite scary.
Iris was the name of the robot.
Yeah. What Alfonso forgot to mention was, within that cube, it wasn't like I was standing in a cube just, pacing. They had me locked in this grid where you had to crawl through it, locked into your waist, and kept your feet tight next to each other so you would oscillate. But if that robot did decide to continue through my face, I couldn't get out of its way. So that, he forgot to mention.
There was a guy with a red button. The problem is, we never told Sandy, is that by the time we push that button, it would have been too late. So.
Sandy, did we tell you that this was how it was going to work before you were showing up?
No one told me anything.
Yeah.
Were you able to use any? I mean, are you claustrophobic at all? Did it feel?
Yes,
Yeah.
I am claustrophobic.
So what did you know what you were getting into when you signed up for the movie?
Well, here's the silver lining. Alfonso said when we first met, he said, the only way that we're really going to be able to shoot zero gravity, and you in zero gravity, is if we do what's called the vomit comet, which is, if you guys don't know, it's this massive plane that falls out of the sky for 30 seconds, gives you weightlessness, and travels back up and keeps falling. So I'm definitely afraid of flying. But I said, if I'm going to shake hands with a fear, this is the way to do it with Alfonso, and I'll just have to suck it up, and this is going to be an amazing life experience. Well, they didn't tell me that we weren't going to do it till 2 weeks before shooting when George just happened to mention it, and I was like, what? There's no vomit coming? So anything they would ask me to do after that, I couldn't care less what it was. They had me strung up from 12 wires for 8-9 hours a day, just would leave me hanging up there. I didn't care. It wasn't in the vomit comet, and I would have done it.
Well, that just shows the work of a Machiavellian producer.
Yes.
So were you able to use some of that for the role, actually, like suppressing the terror? Was that real?
It wasn't so much terror as it just was just zoning out, and if you were in pain, don't, either use it or just, I learned how to meditate up there. I had a great relationship with our sound guy, and that Alfonso gave me boxes of CDs with sounds and pieces of noises that felt like something, and we just sort of made a catalog for each scene. How does this make you feel? Maybe play track 5 if I'm not getting to where we need to go. So anytime I was in a place, he would just play music for me. That sort of.
But yeah, because the communication with Sandra she was literally in that queue, and she had her cap with and so the communication would be through her earphones, and so everything was through radio. So she was insulated, and she would be playing music while she was most of the time when you were performing. You would like to have certain moods and
The sounds. It's almost like they were able to create a soundtrack from like how you hear it here. All the sounds and they were able to create that for you while you were doing the scene, so you could feel something outside of just extreme loneliness in this queue. It gave you like the sense that you might be in space, or it did me.
The whole time remember there, it's like, I'm gonna do a comedy next time. I think I'm just gonna do a comedy. I think I'm just gonna.
That's what I did right after.
I think we have time for a few questions. If you guys want to turn on the spotlight and line up. Questions for David or Sandra or Alfonso?
Hello, this question is for Sandra Bullock.
Not the voice I expected, I gotta be honest.
It's a really sexy voice.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Well, Sandra, I know that with your training for you look good in red, by the way.
That's true, you in black.
Anywhere else, if someone in a mask says that to you, you run.
It's the voice that's keeping me here.
It's the voice.
Well, so, training for gravity, I know your body might have gone under a lot of pressure. Can you tell me, what was your daily workout regimen to prepare for that?
Given that I didn't know what to expect, it sounded very Cirque du Soleil and gymnastics to me. And also, you had to have, I was a dancer all my life, so I went, wow, finally a few trades that I had a knowledge of, like gymnastics and dance and music. I just wanted my body to get to a place where my core could accomplish anything that they wanted me to on the 12-wire system. And so we trained every single day for 6 months before shooting, and then every single day while shooting. And then I wanted the look of her to be almost as androgynous as I could get her, because she, in the story, had experienced such a great loss in life that she just stopped allowing anything that reminded her of what she was, which was a mother and a woman. So I wanted the body to reflect someone who didn't want to be reminded anymore of what she lost. So it was just, it was basically a robot, as much as I could get it to that point and still be healthy and functioning. So it was the core workout to be agile and balletic and limber enough, and then the outside look of it that I wanted to accomplish. So it was every day, every single day.
Thank you for your
Thank
question.
you. Thank you.
What is your name, sir? And what is your question?
Hi, my name is Richie, fellow G4 guy.
Nice.
Children of Men is the best movie in my opinion. Academy Award all around. But my question is, obviously there's a lot of stuff you're trying for in this movie, and you had to create a bunch of rigs. Was there ever a point where the studio is looking at you and they're like, please don't break Sandra's face. Maybe we could do this another way?
I think "Don't Break Sandra's Face" is implied.
Yeah, well, there's always a process to that when you're making a film. There's there's always the suggestion of the easy way, but it's not fun. Yeah. So yeah, there were a lot of suggestions, but at the end of the day, I have to say that they were really fully behind the film. From every standpoint, actually, part of someone who pushed to develop technologies is called Chris DeFaria, who's an executive at Warner's, and who's very into CGs and stuff, and he was a big supporter of the whole thing. So the studio, I have to say, is one of those stories in which they were really, really supportive and they were really behind. Now, I'm not going to say that they didn't suggest for easier ways to do things.
Was there ever a moment where
Bicycle, was it the bicycle? Was it the bicycle chair? Wasn't that one of the suggestions?
Oh yeah.
They suggested that?
No, at some point they said, no, but why are you doing all of that? Why don't you put it in an office chair with some dude running around with a lamp? It's okay, this is what this.
That was actually Chris before he actually.
Actually, that was Chris, just to be fair. Yeah, after praising Chris, that was Chris. Yeah. And then I said, okay, yeah, that may not be a good idea. So, but then he started saying, okay, well, I think he's the one who put us in touch with a robot.
He was the PTA. He was.
So he went from office chair to robots.
At that point, do you just hand them a copy of Children of Men and go, I know what I'm doing. Thanks. Good.
No, but through the matter is that, to do those films is that through the matter you don't know what you're doing. And that's the point of making those films.
Actually, it's one of the most exciting things about working with him is he's a madman. And he really knows no fear and is someone who pushes the envelope and is always, never settles for anything. And sometimes it's a pain in the ass, but it's the best pain in the ass because he will not stop. Nothing, yeah, maybe I should rephrase that.
He's the best kind of pain in the ass. Love it.
I'll stop right there.
This level of dickhead over here is the best.
But he never settles. He's always pushing the limits.
The thing that excites me the most about this movie, besides you guys being involved in it, is it feels like that kind of, there's a type of film in the 70s that I loved where it was like space terror, there was something going on, there was isolation, like silent running to something. Like, where did you draw inspiration for this?
A lot of it had to do a lot with some of those films, and but it's a big repertoire. I mean, it goes from more obscure films like Dead Man Escapes, Bresson, a French movie in the 40s, early 50s, I think, and to Duel, Spielberg. I think it's Spielberg. That may be Spielberg's best, and he has another great films, but that's amazing. The other films like, there's obviously Vanishing Point, talking about those films in the 70s, and Runaway Train. But together with that, what we wanted to do is a film that was an emotional journey. So as much as it's exciting, it's a truly emotional journey of Ryan Stone's character.
Excellent. I think we have time for one more question. What is your name and question, sir?
I'm Charlie.
Hey, Charlie. Don't be nervous, you adorable little monkey.
Sorry. And
Little kid.
I just wanted to say that I consider you, Alfonso, as a master of your craft and were truly an inspiration to what I want to be a future director. So, my question to you is, in Children of Men, we saw the long sequences of action and that would stretch along really long periods of time, like Alfred Hitchcock had wrote. I just wanted to know how difficult was it for you to execute and block these very long sequences of action like we saw. That was one take. I just wanted to know how difficult it is for to do that.
It's not difficult for me. It's difficult for everybody around me. And that's true of the matter. And the thing is, when you do this kind of takes, when you do this kind of like stuff like here, you just depend on a lot of great people. And the first thing I have to say is because you can do a lot of technical things and beautiful camera moves, but it doesn't have a meaning. It doesn't work for anything. And that the point of departure is the screenplay. And as important is the work with the actors. Because when you do those takes at the end, all the weight is on the actors. You can do a lot of stuff around them, but if it's not truthful what's going on there, it's not going to work. So I find that the most demanding thing and more difficult thing is trying to sort out, and that's something that with Sandra will be, and she, speaking of pain in the ass, she will be about going through every single beat to have a clarity of what is exactly what we're trying to convey. And I'm very grateful for that, because otherwise, as much spectacle as you can have, there is not the most important, that is the emotional core. But at the end, it's collaboration. And if you're starting to make films, that's what you're going to learn, that you're only as good as your collaborators.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your question, and good luck, man. Good luck. You can be up here someday, brother. You can be up here. Please keep your applause going. I would like to thank our panel, Alfonso Cauron, Sandra Bullock. Gravity is in theaters on October 4th of this year, 2013. Thank you so much for being here, guys. It was a pleasure.